Hello, welcome to my studio, welcome to this video. This week I wanted to talk to you about a couple of things. I wanted to share some books with you that I'm really enjoying, some art books that I've been reading this week. I've also finished a couple of new paintings. I showed you 4 completed paintings in the last video, and I've been working on another 2, which I started at the same time as that original 4, but I ran out of space. So I often do that. I will start 6 or 8 paintings at once, and then I will kind of work in batches, work 4 at a time or 2 at a time or 3 at a time, just because I've got such a little tiny studio here. And I find that even if I start a set of paintings at once, as I work on them, they take really different directions. So I just thought I'd show you those paintings and talk a little bit about my thought process behind them. And because I've finished that sort of set of paintings, I'm now thinking what next? And I've got all sorts of little irons in the fire and all sorts of things I've been pottering around with and working on. And I'm just sort of going through that thought process of what is the next consuming passion? What is it that's really exciting me? And often I have to sort of work through things in my sketchbook, do little kind of samples and just kind of gather all the threads and think, actually, what is it here that I want to explore? What's interesting me? So I'm sort of in that process at the moment. So I just thought I would share some of the things that I've been creating and some of the ways that I'm thinking about them in case it's helpful in any way to you in your own art making process. This is called Art Against Despair. And I mean, that sounds a little bit depressing, doesn't it? But I think it's actually an incredibly uplifting, positive book. And I really love the sentiment behind this book. It's written by the School of Life, who are a kind of English British institution that do a lot of personal development and a lot of sort of philosophy and just have some interesting thoughts on living a good life. And I really like what they've done here with this art book. And I'll just read what it says. It says, "One of the most unexpectedly useful things we can do when we're feeling glum or out of sorts is to look at pictures. The best works of art can lift our spirits, remind us of what we love, and return perspective to our situation. A few moments in front of the right picture can rescue us." And it's really a book that selects artworks and then talks a little bit about the artwork, and I think gives a little kind of message of hope and translates what's happening in the artwork to the viewer and how we might want to interpret the painting to give us sort of solace or to nurture us or to give us a positive take on the human experience. So for example, this is a still life painting from 1973 by the artist William Scott. And it's a picture of a frying pan and some eggs on a plate. And it's a very sort of spare, but also very arresting still life. And it says here, "With a sensitive eye, Scott discovered endless sources of everyday beauty. All were cheap. He whispers to us that we don't need to be afraid of simplicity. What we need and what could delight us will always remain available." I really appreciate that philosophy that when life is hard, when there are challenging things happening outside in the world or in our personal lives, then art can be a refuge, a place to reflect, a place to inspire, a source of beauty, a source of hope, a source of possibility. And I think that's a lovely way to think about art and creativity. So I've recently finished these 2 paintings and I've just been sitting with them, as I tend to. And as I was painting these 2 paintings, I was really thinking about patchwork quilts and sewing and mending. They were inspired by a walk in my local park, looking at the shapes and the motifs of nature and leaves and plants. And I've been really thinking about embroidery and patchwork quilts, the way that you might mend a beloved blanket with a little patch, bringing sort of disparate ideas and disparate experiences together. And so the paintings have got little sort of patchwork moments, little squares of colour that were really evocative to me and sort of meaningful to me. And so that's what I was thinking about as I painted these paintings, bringing together a kind of patchwork quilt. And actually I think our art is like a patchwork quilt, isn't it? We bring together the things that we enjoy, the things we love, our experiences, our memories, and it all comes out in the painting. So really I've just sort of finished this sort of body of 6 paintings, and now I am thinking about what next. And I'm sort of pottering around, and I've got lots of different ideas going. I'm exploring lots of different things, and I'm hoping that I can then find a path through. So I've been using lots of different techniques, lots of different ways of creating, and I'm really wanting to kind of kindle the creative fire. I'm wanting to, add oxygen and energy to my fire so that I can find my next kind of creative obsession and my next thing that is really exciting me. And I often have to go through this process of, after I've finished a series of paintings, then there'll be a period where I'm sort of messing around a little bit, and I'm exploring things and I'm creating things that are half finished or have half ideas, and I'm going through old sketchbooks and I'm using them as a hunting ground, and I'm maybe taking a shape or a motif or a colour or a way of creating, and I might be mixing it with another idea in another sketchbook, and just seeing if I can find a thread, find a line of inquiry that's really exciting and interesting. And I find when I'm in this creative soup that I'm trying lots of different things, trying lots of different materials, and eventually something will kind of float to the surface and something will occur to me. So it's sort of process of trying things out, and then also being really mindful and interested and curious about what I'm finding exciting. And then that kind of gives me a signpost to where I'm meant to be heading next. But I seem to have lots of things that are kind of calling to me. I'm really enjoying watercolour and coloured pencils and the sort of sensibility of watercolour. Watercolour was always my first love, and I often find that I kind of come back to it, and it just always excites me. I love the qualities of watercolour. So I've been sort of playing around with watercolour collages and pencil and scribbling, and I haven't created anything here that is necessarily a finished piece, but there's something in some of this sort of in the energy of the pieces that I'm really enjoying. I've also been looking back at sketchbooks and just spent a morning doing some of these sort of simple acrylic painted studies, and there's something about the shapes and the boldness and the compositions in these that I'm also loving. And there's a couple of pencil drawings that I'm also really cool to. So I'm sort of sifting and sorting and experimenting and seeing what ignites in terms of where I want to go next. And I often find that I have this sort of period after I've finished a series of paintings. I sort of need to have a little bit of space and give myself a little bit of grace to mess about a bit and to see what is calling to me. I really enjoy exploring different ways of creating, and I'm always trying to find different ways of using the materials I have and maybe combining the materials in different ways, and just taking one idea from one place and one idea from another place and seeing what that sort of combination and assimilation gives me. Sometimes we have to really not know what we're doing and we have to be fine that we don't know where something's going to lead us, that we try something and it doesn't work, or we try something and we love a moment of it, we try something, we love all of it. And I think it's a good life lesson to let go of the outcome sometimes. In the stage where I'm sort of exploring and finding the next thread to pull on, I kind of have to make lots of things. Some things will work, some things won't work. And then I can kind of sift and sort through what I've got, and it will give me clues and ideas for how to progress it. And the other book that I have here is a book by Marion Duchars, I think her name is, and it's called Make Everyday Creative: Art Anyone Can Do. And I was sent it by the publishers, and I can see why they've sent it to me. It is full of little creative challenges, creative tasks, things like painting on a postcard, making a stamp out of an eraser, using offcuts, creating hand lettering, painting with sticks, looking for faces in unusual places, and lots of little drawing exercises. And I think these kind of accessible, quick art techniques can be really useful to inject something new into our art making, just to get the ball rolling. And often they lead to really interesting discoveries. So this sort of sense of play and just little creative fun tasks, we can then kind of integrate into what we already do. And it can give us ideas, it can give us clues, it can get us in touch with our creative selves. And I like what she has said. She's a fine artist and an illustrator. She does lots of sort of book covers, and she combines text with really interesting sort of collages and drawings, and I really like her work. And so what she said here I really like. Everyone is born creative, but it's easy to doubt our abilities. In my own artistic journey over the last 25 years, I've come to realise that there are 3 things at the core of my creative process: curiosity, observation, and play. Isn't that useful and powerful? I think just the way that she has summarised that. And it's so true. Being curious, observing, and playing is like a perfect magical spell for igniting creativity. I haven't actually yet, followed any of these exercises, but a lot of the things in here are things that I would do instinctively and naturally in my art making. And perhaps what I'll do in the next video is pick an exercise and we can do it together, because I just think that's always fun, isn't it? I like her philosophy and I like her way of injecting creativity, creating little tasks and little processes and little boundaries for ourselves as a jumping off point. And I think that can be really useful in our art making. We often need to inject a little something new or a little something interesting. And so these kind of small exercises can often be the gateway or the doorway or the springboard to something exciting, can't they?